It is painful and tedious, and unless you're obsessed with something, you should probably wait for the obsession. So don't write about something that you're not really interested in.
Hey everyone, it's Jen Foster here with Elite Publishing Podcast. Really excited today to be interviewing an author who has sold over 250,000 books, probably more than that, with his book called Fat That Heal, Fats That Kill. So Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And we have Udo Erasmus with us here, who's also been on a documentary with Tony Robbins and Richard Branson that was narrated by actress Kate Winslet. We're really excited to have him on the show talking about his book and talking about how he has Udo oil now in almost all health food stores around the world. So welcome, Udo.
Thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, tell us, when I know you developed the Udo oil, tell us when you first said, okay, we need a book or we're going to write a book about this.
Oh, it was the other way around. When I got poisoned by pesticide, I started thinking about health, and I had the background in biological sciences, so I could read the journals and do that. And so I was looking at all of that, and I met a guy who had a little publishing company in Vancouver called Alive Books. They're not around anymore. And so I started talking to him. I heard about him at a show that I went to, like a natural food show. And so I went to visit him. And so he said, well, what is an essential fatty acid anyway? And he didn't have any background like that, but he was publishing books and he was selling products in the health food trade. And so I drew him a stick diagram, which is one way to show the design of a molecule. That's just a tradition you learn when you study science, right? So I drew him the stick molecules of the omega-6 and the omega-3 essential fatty acid. Mm-hmm. And he told me later, he said, when I did that, he said, the thought went through his head, this is the guy I want to work with to write a book on fat, because he'd been wanting to write a book on fats for a long time. And then say, well, there's my expert. Okay. And so he said to me, he told me I want to write a book on fats. And we made a deal that we would make an oil, because oils need to be made with health rather than shelf life in mind, because they're very, very sensitive. And so we talked about that and started to get that going. And then it's like, okay, well, I'll write the book. I had never written a book. I'm not a writer. I didn't take literature. I took science, right? And then I had been poisoned, so I wasn't working. So now I was going to spend my time writing on weekends and evenings. And I said to my mother one day, I'd really like to write the book full time, because it won't take 30 years to get it done. So she said, but I don't have a job and I don't have any money. So she just looked at me and she says, okay, you can move in. You can get free room and board so you can get it done. I moved in with my mother. I was 38, 1983, 41 years old.
And did you have a computer at the time, or did you write on a typewriter? Or did you write it down?
No, I moved in with my mother. I had a desk right over here. I still live in the same place. I had a desk over here. I had an Underwood manual portable typewriter, click, 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 right? That's what I wrote on. I went to university all the time, went to the stacks and pulled the books and read the research, took notes by hand on the research. And I developed a shorthand, my own shorthand, so I could write faster. And I developed that at university, so I could take notes from my professor. I could take down his wisdom word for word and give it back to him in the exam, and he always gave me good marks. Nice. When I gave him his wisdom back in his own words, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I learned, developed the shorthand.
And shorthand isn't really around anymore. A lot of people don't really know how to do that or what that is, or well, that's great.
Yeah, but I developed my own. I never took a shorthand.
Yeah, you had your own system for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, little symbols. I just decided.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Anyway, so all my friends are partying. I'm on the typewriter going click, 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 click. And I started writing the manuscript. I was probably 60 pages into it. And the thought, I looked at it and, basically in my head, I said, this is shit. So I got to start again. So I started again, and I got about 30 pages into it. And it's like, you know what? I wouldn't buy this book. So I say, okay, you got to start again. And the third time I started writing, and obviously it took me 6 years to get the book done,
Okay.
with all the studying and all the work that I needed
Yeah.
to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the third time, and then what happens is when you get obsessed with a topic and you're looking and you're hearing and, people say things and if they talk about fats, you hear it. But if they're not talking about fats, you don't hear it just because you're primed, right? There's something when you decide you're going to do something, you get primed. Your whole system gets primed to get it done, right?
Yeah. Where energy goes, energy flows, right? What you focus
Yeah. Where
on
focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So I was steeped in it. I was doing it. Like I said, my friends were partying. Sometimes I would say, why am I doing this? But something would always happen to say, no, you're on the right track. Keep going, keep going, keep going, right? And I thought it would take 6 months. It took me almost 6 years.
Wow.
It was a big top, and it's a big topic, right? So on the third try, it literally fell into place. And of a book, it was called, at that time, it was called Fats and Oil. It was the Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill is the extended version of that. It was a 59 chapter book. When I started writing the third time, I literally wrote and just wrote and just wrote, just taking breaks for sleep and bathroom and food. And it's kind of like it got channeled. I don't know how to explain it. I don't believe, I'm not sort of,
Like it
I don't
just
believe
came
in
to you.
channeling it,
Mm-hmm.
but it flowed. Somehow it got organized within my own being. And then it came out. And then, 54 chapters, literally just wrote that. And it was like 400 pages, right? And then there were 5 topics that didn't go in that flow. So then I stuck them in wherever they were appropriate. But it's almost like the book wrote itself. I just held the pen, right? Or I just clicked the typewriter, right? And I tend to be the kind of person that waits for that to happen. I can't push that. I don't know how to say, okay, now I'm in the flow. I think that comes from diligence and trying and working. And I've got 10,000 pages of notes for what I'm doing now, turning health into a teachable field, total health based in nature and human nature, and turning human nature into a teachable field. Why haven't we done that in 200,000 years?
Right.
Human beings, you'd think you'd want to know what this is and how you can best use it and how you can best enjoy it, right? You'd think, but you'd have to know what it is. So you'd have to spend time with yourself to find out what that is. And nobody's ever put that together. So I want to do that, and it's just beginning to flow. So and I've been at this I've known that I'm going to do this for probably 30 years. So I'm still working on getting it into the flow. I get some pretty good stuff now. And then anyway, I had the publisher. So I gave him the manuscript. He got an editor to do the editing. And then the book came out. And then what the book was, I think of the book as a calling card.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then what happened is then the book went out. I thought the work was done when the book was published, which is no, that's when the work starts.
That's when you have to start promoting it and marketing it and go on your book tours. And
there's no one like an author to promote their own book, And so then I started to do that. We sold, the 250,000, probably 300,000 by now, right? That got sold like 2 books here, 4 books there, 6 books there. I was traveling. I did a radio show. They sold 300 books off of that radio show because it was a pretty popular radio show. But most of the time I would give a talk. And then at the end of the talk, I'd sell 2 books, 4 books, 6 books. They were small talks because I was nobody. I'm still nobody, right?
Well, you have an oil named after you, so you're somebody now, and you have a book, and you're an author
in a
and
small area.
Documentaries, but back then, you were.
Yeah, in a small area, I'm well known, but I'm not a household word. or anything like that. So, and when you start, you're always starting from nobody knows you. You have a book, you've said something, people like reading. Some people like reading, not everybody likes reading. And then what that book did with the work I did, and then the work the publisher did, and the shows I got on, the media shows I got on, I've now done like probably more than 6,000 live talks, more than 3,000 media interviews, 1,500 staff trainings, and now in the podcast area, I'm about up to 700 podcasts.
Wow, that's
Right?
awesome.
So what happens in doing all of that? Sell a few books here, sell a few books there, sell a few books there, and next thing you know, 40 years later, you've sold 300,000 books.
Right.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like the book doesn't sell itself. You can have a garage full of books, and they'll all sit on top of each other, and not a single one of them is going to go and sell itself.
Right. And I think that's a lot of people think, oh, if I just put my book up on Amazon, people will go buy it. And that's similar to saying, oh, if I just have a bunch of books in my garage, someone's going to buy them. Right. It's a similar thing because no one knows they're in your garage, just like no one knows it's on Amazon.
Yeah. And you think somebody's going to break into my garage and steal my books.
There you go. Yeah.
And that'll get them out there.
Yeah. And someone's going to find your book on Amazon, millions and millions and millions of books. And they're not going to find your book unless you're promoting it like you are.
Right. And first-time authors tend to think that their work is done when the book is done. That's what I thought too. That's when the work starts. But as a calling card, there's nothing better than a book. Nothing that I know that's better than a book. Now we do videos and we do all that stuff. But a book is still, because it takes a lot of effort to put your thoughts on paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, then the book tells the details of all of that knowledge that you've gathered to use. You can share with the world.
Right. And people, it's like people kind of know that. The people that have the best reputation in the world are authors, not doctors. Doctors are close second. But people trust authors more than even doctors. And of course, the trust of doctors has diminished a lot too. And that's because for somebody to sit down, and it's painstaking, sitting down and banging on the typewriter or banging on the computer and going and looking and researching and finding the details and getting it right. And, when people do that, there's personality behind it. There's character behind it.
Yeah.
There's something that authors get credit for in doing that. That's almost embedded in the culture, right? But you want to write a book, it will not write itself.
Right.
And then you have to do the work. And you want to, because now you're going to impose it on other people. And they're going to read stuff. And they're going to make decisions and take actions on the basis of what you put in a book. You better get your facts straight.
Right. If you could go back, right. If you could go back to when you were writing the book, if you could give advice to a new author, what would you say to yourself, or what would you say to a new author about the book writing process, or what would you say to them?
It is painful and tedious, and unless you're obsessed with something, you should probably wait for the obsession.
Yeah.
So don't write about something that you're not really interested in. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to write a book because I can make a lot of money, I think probably if I thought about how much time I spent writing the book and how much money I've made from it, 300,000 books at a percentage that I got, it's not bad but it's also 30 years. So 30 years. So if I figured out how much I made per hour,
right,
on the writing,
minimal.
Yeah, minimum wage, might be minimum wage, if that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? But other things have come out of that.
Yes.
Including speaking engagement, including traveling in 40 countries, including foundation for the products that I developed, because I also develop products.
Yeah, the Udo oil.
I developed oils, but also digestive enzymes and probiotics and fiber and green products. So I've been in that. I didn't write books on all of those. I'm fundamentally known as the fat man.
Yeah.
And but I'm looking back now and saying, I'm glad I did it, as tedious as it was, because it's kind of, the fun is not in the writing. Some people like writing. I mean, but there are better writers than me. My English is my second language. So there are people who grew up in English. Some of them write better than I do. I worked with guys, they never wrote a book, but they were better writers than I was. I'm not a bad writer. I'm pretty good at putting thoughts together and making it coherent and getting all the information that's necessary. And I have a kind of a little bit OCD personality when I get obsessed with something. And then I want to get all the details right. And that's probably the funnest part of writing. Other than that, it's pretty tedious. But what the book can do for other people, which is, if you want to not help people, then don't write a book. Right? So it comes out of it, oh my God, the book can travel instead of me having to travel.
Yeah, and the book can help so many people.
And then what happened is the book found my audiences. The first book, we sold 32,000 copies in 8 years. So not a big sell, right?
But above average.
But the book found the audiences.
Yes. Well, thank you, Udo, for being on the show. Everyone, I would love you to go and buy the book on Amazon. Look up Udo Erasmus on Amazon. Yeah. And also go follow him on his website. We'll put it in the show notes below. And you can go and get the book and also go and get the oil and help yourself to be healthy by getting Udo oil. Thanks, everyone, for being on the podcast. Please share this also and like with your friends. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jen.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.